Chen Fan gazed into the distance at the seaside. The boat talisman in his arms carried Zyro Kyu's voice. Old Wang has already received the order. He is heading to the breeding Yellow Spring Pass defense line, preparing to take up his post. Alright, Chen Fan responded, indicating he understood. After discussions, the person in charge of the breeding Yellow Spring Pass defense line was decided to be Old Wang. That is, the one who once made Wang Kui serve as the Wang family head for 13 years. This man was recommended by Wang Kui. He has decent management skills. He has run the station quite successfully. After pondering for a while, he also decided to let Old Wang try his hand at breeding first. Currently, there is a severe shortage of talent. He'll be thrown onto the defense line to train. Let's see if he can handle it. As for the former Yellow Spring Pass defense line head, Zhang Qiuber, he still needs some time to be trained. At the very least, he needs some understanding of the breeding situation. Chu and Wu cannons. He waved his hand grandly. Along the 170-kilometer Jianbei defense line, he installed another set of Xu and Wu cannons. Rain drizzled down from the sky. The rainy season of the new year had arrived. Deep within the Eternal Night continent, a city belonging to the Eternal Night City. Alright, time to go. The drunken, stubbly old man stood up. Staggering, he looked toward Kyuyisi. We've been drinking until dawn. Really should be going. I won't see you off. Kyuyisi was also a bit tipsy by now. His eyes could barely stay open. His face was flush red. Kyuyisi just waved his hand groggily. The old man waved back, then stumbled out of the house. However, shortly after the old man left, the drunkenness on Kyuyisi's face instantly dissipated. His eyes were unusually clear. He stared at the jade slip in his hand, frowning deeply. At that moment, Tanny emerged from behind the screen. Master? Kyuyisi nodded lightly, as if knowing what Tanny was thinking. He shook the jade slip in his hand. This guy came to show his stance to us, telling us he's not a traitor. He's trustworthy. Otherwise, because we don't trust him, some information might not reach him in time, affecting the frontline situation. Then, Master, is he trustworthy? Worth it? Kyuyisi stood up and walked to the window, and let out a light sigh. Then the Eternal Night continent truly has no future. He then smiled and tossed a token into Tanny's arms. Then, catch the token well. 1, 2, 3 Jianbei breeding. Chen Fan was staying at the back mountain of Wuming Mountain. He looked at the Eternal Night leader panel deep in his soul. The number of max-level buildings. Currently, breeding already had 19 max-level buildings. The white-grade building blueprint in his hand. Once this building is upgraded to max level, he looked toward, he could claim that reward again. Building name, Brick Kiln. Building grade, white. Building effect. Can produce bricks for construction. Requires only 100 ghost stones and 1 giant ghost. This was the most absurd crafting requirement he had ever seen. A white-grade building actually required a giant ghost. The next moment, a panel appeared before him. Brick Kiln upgraded to level 2. This building has no upgrade path. Each upgrade makes the produced bricks more durable. Soon, accompanied by countless lines forming the brick kiln, it gradually took shape and quickly solidified into a massive brick kiln. It settled behind Wuming Mountain, next to the ghost house processing base. After upgrading the brick kiln to max level in one go, he looked at its panel and smiled. Brick kiln, as the name suggests, is a building that produces bricks, and he finally understood why this building had a giant ghost restriction. A level 10 brick kiln produces bricks with a defensive strength of a first-tier city wall. This was indeed somewhat overpowered. It far exceeded the effect of a white-grade building. This effect was quite good. This is indeed somewhat abnormal. It has far exceeded the effect of a white-grade building. This effect is quite good. Chen Fan nodded in satisfaction. The current population is not small. There is an urgent need for a dwelling that can house many people. This thing can indeed solve the need for reproduction. Then, after leveling up to max, a building blueprint panel popped up before him. Having lit up 20 max-level buildings, he obtained a blue-grade resource fortune bag. Lighting up 50 max-level buildings would yield an even more valuable reward. Still blue-grade. Chen Fan felt a slight disappointment. He had expected a higher grade, but unlike the fortune bags he had obtained before, this one was a blue-grade resource fortune bag. After opening the lucky pouch, there was a 9.5% chance of obtaining 2 billion ghost stones, and a 0.5% chance of obtaining 3 billion ghost stones, plus a blue-grade resource fortune bag. He casually pulled the blue ribbon on the resource fortune bag. The next moment, the air seemed to freeze. Then, countless ghost stones materialized in the air, like a meteor shower suspended mid-sky. Then, mixed with rain, crashing down to the ground with a crackling sound, Chen Fan stood frozen in place. He looked toward, holding another fortune bag he had pulled from the bag. Somewhat dazed. Was his luck this good? He had hit that 0.5% chance. Tens of thousands of high-grade ghost stones rained down from the sky, equivalent to 3 billion ghost stones. and he got another resource fortune bag to try again. He tentatively opened the resource fortune bag in his hand again. Then, once more, tens of thousands of high-grade ghost stones appeared in the air. Damn, Chen Fan now clearly felt this wasn't just luck. Then he tried once more. Another 100,000 high-grade ghost stones fell from the sky, and another fortune bag appeared in his hand, but in a place he couldn't see. The golden aura swirling around him diminished by one wisp each time he opened a fortune bag, and this golden aura was exactly the heavenly Dao's blessing from last year. The emerald green, mixed with golden aura above Chen Fan's head. Chen Fan stood silent, expressionless, standing there, staring at the resource fortune bag in his hand. He dared not open it again. He roughly figured out what was going on. If he wasn't mistaken, it should be due to that emerald rain from last year. He had been puzzled back then, wondering why his emerald rain was so heavy, yet its effects seemed no different from others. Looking back now, it must have had an extra luck boosting effect, but he hadn't known about this extra effect, and it wasn't based on time, but on the number of uses. He didn't know how many uses remained. For now, he didn't want to waste all the luck he had painstakingly gathered. Using it all on ghost stones was already enough. It had given him 9 billion ghost stones for free, bringing Fan Yu's ghost stone reserves instantly to 16.2 billion. That was enough to build the 7th defense line. All that was left was the monkey head fruit. Not long after, members of Fan Yu's tanking pavilion arrived at the back mountain of Wuming Mountain, calling the countless ghost stones from the ground back to the warehouse. Chen Fan also built 3 more max-level brick kilns. Time came to the next day. In Fan City, massive giant ghosts were carrying giant bricks one by one, following the blueprints etched on the ground beside them, and placing them in order on the open space under command. Soon, a towering building about 14 stories high rose from the ground. Soon, after this skyscraper reached 18 stories, it began to cap off. Wang Kui, the prison master standing nearby, looked at the towering building and stammered, "I've never heard of such a tall structure before. When a strong wind blows, won't it topple?" No, Chen Fan shook his head, offering no further explanation. The max-level effect of the brick kiln was extreme resistance to wind and earthquakes. By the way, Chen Fan suddenly turned to Wang Kui beside him. "How is the management training class progressing lately?" About half a year ago, Fan Yu had established a new private office, mainly to train management personnel. They specifically selected some of the more experienced reproduction members for training. Once they graduated, they could directly take up management positions. Wang Kui replied seriously, reporting, "The first class has all graduated smoothly. They've all taken up various management posts." Chen Fan nodded lightly, not saying anything. Annoyingly, 15 days had passed. The rainy season ended 15 days ago. News came from the Eternal Night Outpost. Not a single front line had fallen, and in these 15 days, Fan City had been completely transformed. After being rebuilt anew, Fan City had expanded once again in size. Towering buildings of varying heights stood in every corner of Fan City, making this city, compared to others, look entirely different. Elsewhere, in an unknown palace, a ghost emperor sat on the throne with a grim expression. The Ghost Clan High Command had issued an order to temporarily halt the assault on the front line. They spared no cost. First, eliminate those unstable factors, then rest for a year and launch a full-scale attack next year. These unstable factors were growing too fast, and this task of cleansing and eradication was placed upon his shoulders. After a long silence, the Ghost Emperor seated in the hall let out a heavy sigh. He delayed giving the order. He was waiting for a better solution. If he truly mobilized the entire army to attack the western wasteland island, by the time they reached it, few soldiers would remain. He truly did not want to die in vain under heaven like this. Then a lesser ghost below offered a suggestion. "Your Majesty, why not find a way to lure Chen Fan to the front line? Then, just like when the Vermilion Sand #1 frontline commander was dealt with, use the same method to kill Chen Fan. That would certainly be more convenient than sneaking into the western wasteland island." The Ghost Emperor pondered from his throne. This is indeed a good plan. After all, as long as Chen Fan dies, how he dies doesn't matter. He had heard that Chen Fan cared deeply about architectural blueprints. Suddenly, a sinister laugh echoed through the hall. "Listen up. Take a blue architectural blueprint from the warehouse. Place it in the mouth of a giant ghost. Have that giant ghost lead troops to charge the front line, and deliver this blueprint to the frontline forces." Understood. He had also stockpiled quite a few blueprints. These blueprints were useless to the Ghost Clan, but they were useful to humans. They would collect them. Often, they served as excellent bait. Dawn broke, and shortly after, the Mother-Son talisman in Chen Fan's arms conveyed Qiu Lao's heavy voice. "The Janbei defense line isn't even considered a secondary line. Last night, many defense lines in the Eternal Night continent were breached. The Ghost Clan paid a tremendous price to smuggle in large numbers of ghost nests with clear targets and planned strikes. They eliminated many seed factions. These factions were like Fang Yu, factions with immense potential, We intercepted several waves of ghost nests and seized some craft paper. In the craft paper, their attack targets were marked. He knew the Eternal Night Hall would definitely send someone to contact him. Chen Fan is at the top of the list. Be careful. The communication ended. Chen Fan, too, had just woken up. Upon receiving this news, stood silent with a blank expression. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Kate, I didn't do anything. I just sent a batch of grain and a batch of sculptures. How did I end up at the top of the list? Do the ghost clan hate me that much? Then he quickly pulled out a sound transmission talisman. Wang Kui, bring back all the mature monkey head fruits from the island side. See if we can gather 870,000 monkey head fruits. Right now, the Western Wasteland Island and the No. 7 defense line still have this gap unsealed. If it really doesn't work, we'll have to build at least a level 9 defense line to plug this gap. Useless. Useless. In the waters of the Eternal Night Westing Shu and Wu No. 1 front line. Inside a palace, that ghost emperor was furiously smashing the tableware on the table. The architectural blueprint had been successfully delivered to the front line, but according to his informant's news, the front line had not notified Chen Fan about this matter. Instead, they kept it for themselves and had the No. 1 frontline architect study it. Infuriating. His plan was to use this blueprint to lure Chen Fan to the front line so he could avoid the losses from smuggling, but he never expected this. The front line didn't even bother to report this news to Chen Fan. Isn't Chen Fan the top architect? You have the blueprint, yet you don't seek Chen Fan. You damn well try to comprehend it yourself. How about, the little ghost kneeling below trembles like a sieve, producing a path. How about sending another one? Send your mother. Ghost Yellow, somewhat flustered, said, if I send more, I'll become a traitor. Not only did this fail to lure Chen Fan, but it also wasted a blue-grade blueprint. However, he quickly took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Don't rush. A blue-grade blueprint won't be comprehended that quickly. It takes a long time. Let me think. What other ways are there to lure Chen Fan to the front line? Let me think. Kidnap his family. Wang Chen Fan has no family. Kidnap his wife. No wife. Children. No children. Subordinates. His core subordinates are all in Jiangbei. Wife Wang suddenly fell silent. Then what else can we kidnap? It seems we can only launch a direct assault. Wife Wang sat silently in the grand hall, not uttering a word. At this moment, his mind kept flashing through the loneliness he had learned from human culture. But just as he was deep in thought, a voice suddenly came from the ghost orb in his arms. The habitat is on the verge of collapse. We have no more time. Ghost Yellow's face darkened as he fell silent, standing still for a long time without speaking. Anyone could see the current war situation clearly. If they dragged it out, the Eternal Night continent would be slowly worn down by the Ghost Clan. But the problem was that the Ghost Clan couldn't drag it out much longer either. The habitat was already on the verge of collapse. They had to find a new home. Fine, since it's come to this, then this is the only way. After a long while, Ghost Yellow worked out of the grand hall and let out a roar. Countless ghost dwellings responded from the darkness. Then, across this vast sea, batch after batch of ghost nests began to gather together, holding their positions, preparing for cross-region stealth crossing. Meanwhile, in the distance, an endless stream of ghost warriors emerged from the seabed, continuing to charge toward the Eternal Night Westing Shu and Wu No. 1 front line. Those ghost nests were beyond their control. Meanwhile, large quantities of supplies had already been transported. What the exact situation and condition, since a level 10 defense line couldn't be built for now, they would first build a level 9 defense line. Chen Fan sat inside the carriage, lowered his head, flipping through the relevant intelligence he had compiled. Last night, the ghost nests at various front lines of Eternal Night had almost all used the method of 1 in 100 surviving to stealthily cross into secondary defense lines, eliminating some promising forces and individuals. The price paid was indeed not small. But if he were the actual ruler of the Ghost Clan, would he have given this order? The cost and reward seemed somewhat disproportionate. No matter how promising a force was, it still needed time to develop. This was a bit too hasty. After a moment, Chen Fan arrived at the No. 7 defense line. The Jiangbei defense line isn't even considered a secondary line. 7 elders had already been waiting here with their people for some time. And the Kento Plain, will a ghost nest of this scale really come here? Hard to say. Chen Fan shook his head. Prepare for every eventuality. Time is tight and the task is heavy. No one knows if the ghost nest will descend tonight. The 97-kilometer No. 7 defense line area needed to be built quickly. Time passed. Night had fallen and Fan Yu was still busy. This level 9 defense line was essentially fully constructed. The main structure was complete. Only a few minor details needed to be added, and it would be done. This defense line, I name it the Fan Yu No. 7 defense line. It will inherit the will of the No. 7 defense line. Chen Fan handed a token, representing Fan Yu's identity to 7 elders. The person in charge of this defense line remains you. I have only one request, hold this line. This defense line must never be breached. Me. 7 elders chuckled lightly. Of course it's you. Chen Fan smiled. You are from Fan Yu, the one who knows the Guandan Plain best. I trust you enough. Leaving this place to you is the most fitting choice. Of course, after all, it is a level 9 defense line. You might not be able to handle it alone. I'll leave you 2 deputies. They are both newly trained from the nursery. Take them under your wing and guide them. He waved to the side. 2 younger men stepped out from the crowd. Shencheng, with a stern face, said, "Greetings, Jade Master." "Greetings, 7th Elder." They just graduated from the first batch of the breeding private school. Seeing this, the 7th Elder finally breathed a sigh of relief. His heart settled. After taking a deep breath, he looked at Chen Fan. He solemnly promised, "As long as I'm here, the No. 7 defense line will not fall." "Good, then I leave it to you." Chen Fan smiled and continued refining the details. Late at night, massive swarms of ghost nests gathered at the front line of Yanai's Westing Chuan Wu No. 1. After gathering to a certain number, a deep, hoarse voice came from within the ghost nests. "Head north, advance." The originally restless ghost nests, upon hearing the command, began advancing northward in unison through the seawater. This time, the scale of the ghost nests was countless times larger than last time. A full army mobilization, all ghost nests on one front line mobilized fully, for a single purpose, to destroy the breeding ground. The next moment, suddenly, countless heavenly thunders appeared above the ghost nests, completely enveloping them. Countless ghostly beings perished as a result, yet a vast number of ghost nests still crossed this region, arriving at the sea before the Qiming Basin. The ghost emperor, hovering in the air, glowered darkly behind him, at the ghostly beings that died from the illegal crossing. He issued another command, "Advance north." Yes, he was leading the charge himself. After a day of deliberation, he finally understood. Once he destroyed the breeding ground, he wouldn't return. Nor could he return. So he planned to, after annihilating the breeding ground, directly station himself on the western wasteland island. This would be his territory. Then, he hid beneath the massive ghost's body at the tree's crown, under the big ghost's cover, and illegally crossed into another region further north, the Yellow Spring Mouth Sea area. Soon, he could faintly make out a defense line standing by the coast. That was the Yellow Spring Mouth coastal defense line. "It's finally my turn to have some fun." The Northern Emperor gazed from afar at that low-level defense line, a glint of excitement flickering in his eyes. He had never breached any defense line before. He couldn't break through the front lines, and he never bothered with secondary lines. He had never known what it felt like to break through a defense line. Today, he could experience it firsthand. The next moment, the Ghost Emperor led the charge at the forefront, roaring as he worked atop the waves. Massive waves swept up countless ghost nests, crushing heavily against the defense line, splashing up bursts of water. Yet, until the Ghost Emperor charged to the defense line, not a single turret fired. The entire defense line was empty of people. Even the turrets and such had been removed. The Ghost Emperor glanced around in confusion. Is this an abandoned defense line, or has it been neglected? Since it was last overrun, though he had stormed this line, it offered no resistance at all, denying him the thrill of conquering a defense line. Forget it. He licked the corner of his mouth, his gaze fixed on the direction of the Yellow Spring Mouth Canyon. There's another defense line there. That one must have people to crush. This line was the same. Massive swarms of ghost nests crossed the defense line, penetrating deep into the Yellow Spring Mouth region, without any delay, heading straight for the Yellow Spring Mouth Canyon. If they could look around the nearby cities, they would find that not only the defense line, but even the people in the cities had been evacuated. When they learned that someone might attack the breeding ground, Yanai Store evacuated the Yellow Spring Mouth coastal defense line personnel. There was no need for pointless sacrifice. The breeding domain evacuated all the commoners from every city in the Yellow Spring Mouth region, some repairing the walls. The Yellow Spring Mouth region was essentially empty of people, and the moment this batch of ghost nests landed, messages were relayed through signal towers, quickly reaching Chen Fan's hands. Ghost nests breach Yellow Spring Mouth, spread through Wild Vine and Verdant Mountain, heading straight for the breeding ground's Yellow Spring Mouth defense line. Numbers are extremely high. He had already fortified the breeding ground's No. 7 defense line. More or less, Chen Fan was resting in the city wall. When he received this message, he grinned. Without a moment's hesitation, he took his people and boarded the Fanyu high-speed rail, riding through the night, rushing straight toward the Fanyu Huangquan Pass defense line. Finally, it's here. At the same time, he quickly contacted young Master Shaikyu via Sound Talisman. The hidden agents left at the Fanyu Huangquan Pass defense line need not interfere with command. They only need to record Elder Wang's demeanor, his methods of handling things, and his decisions. This is Elder Wang's first time encountering a ghost nest assault since taking charge of the Fanyu Huangquan Pass defense line. Let's see how he responds. That will reveal whether this man can be trusted with this ghost nest. He has no fear. The actual defense line is right there. An ordinary ghost nest could never break through him. The breeding Yellow Spring Pass defense line. At this moment, the 200-meter-high city wall was brightly lit. They had already received word that the ghost nest was about to strike. This batch of ghost nests had even snuck over from the front lines. Though they had undergone the trial of 1 in 100 survives, both in numbers and in strength, they were completely different from the ghost nests they usually saw during the rainy season. These were the ghost race's regular army. Large numbers of Fanyu members were constantly bustling along the city wall. A tense atmosphere gradually solidified. No matter how well prepared, facing a great enemy still stirs unease. A hidden agent was at that moment concealed in the shadows, watching Elder Wang's every move, silently noting in his heart, strong mental fortitude, not much fluctuation. Elder Wang, once the former clan head of the Qiyu Wang clan, now stood at the edge of the city wall, tucking the jade slip in his hand into his bosom. He had just finished reading the detailed information about the Fanyu Qiuliquan Pass defense line left by the Jade Lord. At this moment, with little change in expression, he raised the identity token in his hand. This was the commander's identity token, which also held nearly all the authority over this defense line. The next moment, this 200-meter-high, 27-kilometer-long Fanyu Qiuliquan Pass defense line began to rapidly lower in height, dropping to 150 meters, 100 meters, 80 meters, 50 meters, and it kept decreasing. Just then, a cold gleam suddenly appeared at Elder Wang's throat. The hidden agent, who had been lurking in the shadows all along, disobeyed the sect leader's orders for the first time. Stepping out from the darkness, pressing a dagger against Elder Wang's throat, he pulled a sound talisman from his bosom and contacted the sect leader. Sect leader, I have stepped in to stop Elder Wang. Elder Wang might be a traitor. He is actively lowering the defense line's height. Now the defense line is only 50 meters high. If I hadn't stopped him, he would have kept going. Soon, young Master Shakyu's voice came from the sound talisman. Let him continue. You don't need to interfere. The hidden agent gritted his teeth, withdrew his hand, and stepped aside, returning to the shadows. Elder Wang, standing on the city wall, glanced at the shadow beside him, raised the identity token high, and continued lowering the defense line until it dropped to 30 meters in height. What was once an extremely imposing defense line now looked no different from an ordinary level 6 defense line. The height of a level 6 defense line was exactly 30 meters. Only then did he pull out a sound talisman to contact Lord Chen Fan. Based on the information I've obtained, this batch of ghost nests snuck over from the front lines. They are ghost nests with intelligence. If they saw the defense line was level 10, they might not launch an attack. This batch of ghost nests is not weak in strength. They can drop quite a few good things. Letting them slip away for nothing would go against heaven's will. First, disguise it as a level 6 defense line. Once they enter range, open fire instantly. The sect leader's laughter came from the sound talisman. You are the commander of the Fanyu Qiuliquan Pass defense line. Handle these matters as you see fit. It was obvious, the sect leader was quite satisfied. A hint of a smile flickered in Elder Wang's eyes. He didn't look back at the corner of the wall behind him. Finally, the moment had come. The Ghost King led a massive horde of ghost nests. Seeing the Qiuliquan Pass defense line from afar, he sneered. A 30-meter-high wall. That's just a level 6 defense line. I can faintly see many people moving on the wall. Let's start with this defense line. Everyone pay attention. The fray has a means of long-range support. The explosion has immense power, but the support requires some time. With our strength, breaking through this level 6 defense line ahead will only take a few dozen breaths. Once the line is breached, scatter immediately, then regroup. His plan was flawless. After all, he had studied human military tactics. He knew the saying, under heaven, only speed is unbeatable. Even the best plan has flaws, and as long as you're fast enough, you can cover many of them. The only thing that vaguely puzzled him was when the eternal night hall had become so extravagant. The walls of this defense line before him were entirely made of ghost cave patterns. Quite the luxury. But it was harmless. It wouldn't affect the occupation. The next moment, a stench almost solid in form rushed in from the eternal night. A ghost house charged out of the eternal night into the ghost fire range, brandishing its claws. Then, more and more ghost houses, like a tide, poured into the ghost fire range, heading straight for the phrase Yellow Spring Pass defense line. Every rainy season, a suffocating sense of despair. Among the ghost nest were dozens of greater ghosts, charging toward the defense line with giant hammers. Many ghost creatures were trampled underfoot by these greater ghosts. Meanwhile, the Ghost King floating in the eternal night just gave a cold snort. A ball of ominous green mist gradually gathered in his palm. Zheng Qingjing suddenly erupted. He roared, and hurled the ball of ominous green mist toward the defense line. But just then, he saw his full force strike. That ball of ominous green mist, upon hitting the city wall, dispersed lightly. The wall suffered no damage. It was like setting off a firework. What's going on? This ghost emperor, who had been so ambitious moments ago, suddenly froze in place. Somewhat unwilling to believe it, he threw another ball of ominous mist. The result was still the same. It dispersed lightly again. Could it be a special upgrade path, immune to ranged attacks? The Ghost Emperor frowned deeply. He roughly guessed what was happening. Wild Tyrant shook his head, pulled a large blade from his chest, and roars again. He charged out of the Eternal Night into the Ghost Valley. The Ghost Emperor personally headed for the defense line. This time, he would lead the charge. In the Eternal Night's Westing Xuan Wu No. One front, he had never led the charge there. After all, he would die. But here, he wanted to show his might was that not allowed, and the phrase Imperial Pass Defense Line. Old Wank saw a greater ghost wielding a large blade, roaring with its mouth. A torquing greater ghost, surrounded by ghost houses, all clearly afraid of this greater ghost. Old Wank squinted his eyes. This was clearly a greater ghost with some background. It was about time to close the net. By now, the ghost nest was gradually sensing something wrong. Many greater ghosts rushed to the base of the wall, swinging hammers to smash the wall, but found it completely unmoved. It was like they were smashing the soul of the heavenly Dao's foot. They couldn't budge it at all. Wasn't this a level 6 defense line? How could it not even shed a speck of dust? The Ghost Emperor, who had been charging halfway, witnessed a greater ghost swing a sore hammer and smash it against the defense line. But the line didn't budge at all. His eyelids twitched wildly. A deep sense of unease surged in his heart. Almost instinctively, he stopped his charge and quickly retreated. Perhaps this defense line had an extremely rare upgrade path, immune to ranged attacks, but it could also be immune to melee attacks. A level 1-6 defense line. How could it withstand a greater ghost's hammer without moving? At least a few layers of dust should have fallen off. Unless this wasn't a level 6 defense line. The next moment, the defense line began to rise rapidly, until it reached 200 meters in height. Meanwhile, the 1,350 shrine cannons mounted on the line finally began to operate at full power. Star-red shells began to rain down without mercy, engulfing the ghost nest. Buzz, and the surface of the phrase Yellow Spring Pass defense line. The 1,024 femur bricks began to crack and explode, each firing a beam of green light. A pillar of light quickly coalesced in the air into a massive, cyan, illusory black tortoise. The moment this black tortoise landed, it locked onto its target. It charged straight at him, breaking through 10 layers of defenses. The Ghost King, fleeing madly into the depths of the Eternal Night, kept looking back at this defensive line behind him, his face pale. A defense line that wasn't even the front, not even a secondary line, was actually a level 10 city wall. The Eternal Night Hall definitely couldn't have done this. Barring surprises, only Fan Yu could have pulled this off. He's insane. Fan Yu has completely lost his mind. All troops, by my command, retreat. Retreat. As he fled toward the Eternal Night, he roared, fall back first. Get lost. He ordered, while attacking the cyan black tortoise behind him. But this black tortoise kept its gaze locked on him, and his attacks were completely nullified. It was infuriating. As they say, strike the drowning duck, defeat and collapse, in a canyon that wasn't particularly wide. The divine cannon's damage, once unleashed, was perfectly maximized here. With every star crimson shell fired, countless blood chains could be seen weaving through the ghost nest. The nest was extremely dense, nearly a single wave of misery. This created a stunning scene, extremely satisfying, truly beautiful. Old Wank stood at the edge of the city wall, gazing down, unable to help but smile. He had never imagined that one day he would feel so exhilarated. Thrilling killing is thrilling. In the Eternal Night, not far from the breeding ground, in the darkness beyond the Yellow Spring Mouth defense line's tactical zone, the repelled ghost nest regrouped. Bei Huang glared darkly at those around him, the trusted subordinates encircling him. He had been careless. When he noticed the Yellow Spring coastal defense line was empty, he should have realized something might change. A level 10 defense line, the Yellow Spring Mouth defense line suddenly becoming level 10. This was completely unexpected. The main reason was, he had received no intelligence, no information at all. King, what do we do now? A trusted subordinate beside him rasped with a grim face. Should we try a charge? After all, this isn't the front line. They won't have stockpiled too many ghost stones. And with us blocking here, the Eternal Night Hall's reinforcements can't get through either. Maybe we can break through. The Ghost King remained silent, not speaking, his mind racing, weighing the feasibility of this proposal. It's possible, though there's some risk. But besides that, there's a second path. Keep sneaking through. He lowered his head and gazed at the ghost skin map in his hand. From the Yellow Spring Mouth area, continue sneaking north, all the way to the Guandan Plain Sea region. The defense line there can't be level 10, can it? If we sneak through there, we can still land on the western wasteland island. Again, one intensifies Zeus heaven shaking. The trusted subordinate beside him, holding a sharp blade, a flicker of ruthlessness in his eyes. I'll take the front line, Heaven Shaker. The Ghost King frowned deeply. Let me think. Don't rush. For an instant stick later, he opened his eyes, looking at our ghost strategist who appeared quite aged, and said hoarsely, speak your mind. This ghost strategist was his military advisor. His advisor was one of the more experienced among the ghost strategists, and he usually listened to his counsel. King, the aged ghost strategist, stroking his white beard with a trembling hand, his voice quavering, slowly said, "Currently, only two paths lie before us. Continue sneaking toward the Guanan Plain, or have the entire army charge and gamble on the Yellow Spring Mouth defense line. But, King, when the higher-ups ordered you to lead all your men in a full-force assault on the Western Wasteland Island, they had already abandoned you. After all, you can never return now, whether the mission succeeds or fails. King, you have no way back. There's something I'm not sure I should say, but have you carefully considered the higher-ups' orders? Destroy the unstable factors of the Eternal Night Continent. Eliminate the unstable elements of the Eternal Night Continent. This is a long-term plan that develops due to unstable factors and requires time. Even at its fastest, it couldn't develop enough to have an impact in just a year or two. The occupation statement means the higher-ups must eliminate unstable factors on one hand, while slowly grinding down the Eternal Night Continent on the other. Yet the higher-ups also say a full-scale assault must be launched within 2 years. This is a short-term plan. If a full-scale assault is already underway, why bother with those unstable factors? These two are completely contradictory. What the higher-ups want to eliminate is not these unstable factors at all. Ghost Emperor stood frozen in place, looking up at the darkness above his head, and subconsciously scratched his neck. Then who the higher-ups want to eliminate? It can't be me, can it? It is, Old Ghost said hoarsely. During this rainy season, the higher-ups ordered many frontline ghost nests to eliminate unstable factors through a near-self-destructive method of illegal crossing, yet they also said a full-scale assault would be launched in a year or two. This is clearly contradictory. If nothing unexpected happens, the higher-ups have already started dividing the spoils. King, you've been cut out of the game. Ghost Emperor was momentarily furious to the point of laughing. They haven't even breached the defenses yet, and they're already dividing the spoils. Given the current situation, sooner or later we'll occupy the Eternal Night Continent, and I have a suspicion that the higher-ups might have gained other support. Dividing the spoils after occupation would be troublesome. Otherwise, with so many troops, the losses wouldn't be for nothing. Ghost Emperor remained silent for a long time. These words hit him too hard. He had never imagined such a possibility. King, Old Ghost continued slowly. So, there's actually a third path I mentioned earlier. Whether it's illegal crossing or a direct assault, what are we fighting for? To occupy the Eternal Night Continent, to have a piece of land that belongs to us. But don't we already have that now? Old Ghost pointed around them. The Yellow Spring Pass area has already fallen. This is our land. This is our home. Leave the rest to the front lines. We've all withdrawn from the front lines, attacking the defensive lines and such. That's no longer our concern. Our current forces are only 1% of what we started with. What defensive line can we still fight? Many things. Don't have to wait until you've achieved fame and success. We don't need to occupy the Eternal Night Continent to settle down. But Ghost Emperor suddenly realized, the Ghost Envoys will come. Then, as it dawned on him, Ghost Envoys are the higher-ups' means of overseeing them. Their individual strength is extremely high, stronger than him. When a Ghost King refuses to obey orders, the Ghost Envoy descends. But Ghost Envoys can only descend at the front lines. That is, the breach area. Ghost Envoys cannot descend into the Yellow Spring Pass area without anyone to block the heavenly tribulation. If a Ghost Envoy dares to cross illegally, they will surely die. I get it now. Ghost King suddenly grinned with excitement. From now on, we'll stay in the Yellow Spring Pass area. We won't go anywhere. No direct assault, no illegal crossing. From time to time, we'll command some ghost creatures in this area to charge the defensive line, just for show. Then we'll start enjoying ourselves in peace. And the higher-ups can't say much about it. After all, this is a timely defensive line. It's inherently hard to breach. But what about the post-war reckoning? No, Old Ghost shook his head. We've still rendered meritorious service, after all. To settle accounts right after the war ends would chill people's hearts. At that point, you just need to cozy up to some of the higher-ups, find a protective umbrella, and you'll be mostly settled. Even if it doesn't work out and you're truly purged, you'll still have had a few years of easy living. Isn't that better than the other two paths? True, Ghost Emperor laughed. He laughed heartily. Suddenly, the gloom before his eyes seemed to vanish, and the path ahead was bright. He turned to look at the distant stone defensive line. Who cares what schemes the higher-ups have or don't have? He then stationed himself in the Nether Spring Pass region. He wasn't going anywhere else. To hell with conquering the Eternal Night Continent. He had already occupied the Nether Spring Pass region. He was going to start basking in the sunlight. Soon dawn broke. Nether Spring Joy. Chuckling, he led his swarm of ghost nests back home. Arriving at the heart of the Nether Spring Pass region, they had occupied an abandoned city in the region. Shenfang gripped the parapet with both hands, gazing up at the sky, the faint sunlight seeping through the dark clouds. He spread his arms with great satisfaction and murmured, So this is the taste of sunlight. Comfortable. He had spent so long in the resting grounds and on the front lines, never seeing the sun. And now he finally saw it. Truly, why must one achieve fame and glory to enjoy life? As long as you have a heart that seeks enjoyment, you can achieve fame and glory at any time. Success need not be mine, but enjoyment must include me. Behind him, the ghost huts that had gained sentience had already started finding houses for themselves. Outside the city, countless ghost nests lay sprawled. They had already put down their arms and begun farming. A large ghost hut strode over to report to the king. The city lord's mansion has been cleared for you, to serve as your palace. Besides that, we found quite a few seeds. They've been distributed for everyone to start planting. But the subordinates are rather dull-witted. They haven't learned how to farm yet. Nether Springjoy grumbled in dissatisfaction. Can't even learn something as simple as farming. Tell them, if they don't learn within 3 days, they'll be farming for me. Then he looked up at the sky above his head, hovering high above, the glowing sky rail in the air. This route should be the supply line transporting goods to the front. This is quite a troublesome matter. Nether Springjoy frowned slightly. He wasn't worried about the eternal night sect coming to clean them out. This batch of ghost nests was a regular army, without the protection of the defense line. How could the eternal night sect clean them out? Rely on the night watchers. How many night watchers would it take to wipe them out? But the breeding ground was different. He was a bit worried about the breeding ground. The breeding ground truly had the means. Just then, the ghost valid talisman in his bosom faintly vibrated. How goes the progress? Nether Springjoy narrowed his eyes slightly. Kicking up the ghost valid talisman, he replied. Encountered some unexpected trouble. The Nether Spring Pass defense line has been upgraded to a level 10 defense line. We're currently assaulting it with all our might. The other side was silent for a long time. Clearly, they hadn't expected the Nether Spring Pass defense line to be upgraded to level 10. Really? He curled his lips. You can send someone to come see for yourself. You can't breach a level 10 defense line. Try sneaking through to the Guandan Plains and land at defense line 7. Nether Springjoy laughed silently. A glint of malice flashed in his eyes. Did they really think his men's lives were worthless? One sneak attack costs 9 out of 10 lives. How many men did he have to waste like that? He was growing more and more suspicious. Whether the higher-ups had already started dividing the spoils and eliminating those ghost nests without backing. But of course, he wouldn't openly break ties. He just spoke in a hoarse voice, exuding a stubborn and ruthless tone. Rest assured, 3 years. Just 3 years. I will surely breach this defense line. To the death. If I can't breach this defense line, I'll bring you my head. The call ended. Nether Springjoy laughed, tossing the ghost valid talisman in his hand. What's the big deal about a level 10 defense line? Take it slow. At that moment, Chen Fan, who had already arrived at the breeding grounds Nether Spring Pass front line, stood atop the wall, gazing at the countless ghost hut corpses outside the defense line. His brow furrowed slightly. This batch of ghost nests had sneaked over from the front line, and on a massive scale, much larger than last time. But after falling into a trap once, they immediately retreated. Without launching a second attack, they went back to the front line. That can't be. They'd have to sneak through twice more to come back and forth. They don't even need to make a move. Most of them are already dead. Then there are only 2 paths, a direct assault, or continue sneaking through to the Guandan Plain. He pulled out a sound transmission talisman from his bosom, and contacted the 7 elders of Defense Line 7. Tonight, there may be a massive wave of ghost nests landing. Be prepared. If an emergency arises, contact me immediately. Yes. Just then, high above on the sky rail, a breeding high-speed train was speeding toward them at an incredible pace. As it passed the breeding Yellow Springs entrance defense station, it stepped. A member of the Dark Pavilion stepped down from the train and strode toward Chen Fan. The sect leader has detected a large number of ghost nests active in the Yellow Springs entrance area. They've already occupied several cities, and it seems they're settling in and taking root. Chen Fan was momentarily stunned. Already settling in, he reacted almost instantly. He lowered his head and gazed at the ghost skin map in his hand, gradually understanding the ghost nest's intentions. With a complex expression, he looked at the Dark Pavilion member who had narrowly escaped death. He waved his hand. He gestured for him to withdraw. Ghost Emperor Kingling, this guy managed to come back alive. Clearly, that Ghost Emperor showed mercy. Otherwise, there's no way he'd have survived. Chen Fan rubbed his temples with a headache, pondering a countermeasure. Just then, suddenly, a series of loud roars came from beside him. Through the great torrential rain ahead, a ghost hut was rapidly charging toward them. And as per usual, soon a second, a third, a fourth, and more should follow. But until this ghost hut had already charged to the base of the city wall, no other ghost huts appeared. Only this single ghost hut was launching an assault on the defense line. Its left hand held high a white flag. Its right hand held high a piece of parchment. After placing the parchment on the ground, it turned and ran back into the rain. What's going on? Kuai-hu, standing beside him, frowned slightly. As expected of frontline ghost nests, they even observed the formality of sending a declaration before battle. Go and retrieve that declaration. Soon, the parchment was delivered to Chen Fan's hands. It bore a few short lines of vertical text. Declaration of war. Ghost Emperor Kingling declares to Fan Yu. Hundreds of thousands of mercenaries stand ready. Yet Heaven's way values life. Now, I am willing to cease hostilities, taking the Yellow Springs entrance as the boundary. Neither side shall invade the other. No truce shall disturb military supplies or medics, no battle without course. Yin and Yang each have their path. Heaven and earth each hold their space. Chen Fan stood silent, expressionless. This was the first time he had received a letter of truce from a ghost hut. He had to admit, this ghost emperor was indeed of a higher caliber than any ghost he'd encountered before. He even knew how to use flowery language. Was the other party really planning to desert, to stop fighting, and just stay in the Yellow Springs entrance area? For him, this wasn't necessarily a good thing, but it wasn't a bad thing either. It gave him a very strange feeling, the strangest he'd ever felt, from a ghost hut in all these years. Young master, after seeing this letter, Zuvu was also a bit baffled. Then let's just hold our ground. First, we stay put and make no moves. Chen Fan spoke after a moment of contemplation. We need more time to develop. If they're not in a hurry, then we're even less so. First, run a few empty trips to see what they're up to, and send a reply in the meantime. I want some sincerity, like their roster of names. Will this really work? Ghost Emperor Kingling stood on the city wall without much confidence, discussing with several wooden attendants beside him. In the ground nearby, lay many discarded drafts. To produce this one letter of truce, they had deliberated for a long time. After all, it represented their cultural refinement. They couldn't lose face. The biggest difference between the Ghost Clan and Ghost Nests is that we understand culture. Let's give it a try, the old ghost said hoarsely. From a human perspective, they certainly won't agree. After all, humans won't allow the Eternal Night continent to be occupied. Even if it's just a region, humanity is ultimately made up of individuals, not a single whole. As long as we don't severely harm the interests of reproduction, Tenyu probably won't start a war on his own initiative. After a long silence, the Ghost Emperor finally looked up at the mist beneath the gloomy clouds above. Is the world so vast? Yet finding a place to settle is truly this difficult. I wonder what lies across the sea, what kings rule there. Don't be curious. Every ghost that got curious about that never came back. That's true. The Ghost Emperor nodded, then gazed at the seeds buried in the ground not far away. A flicker of interest in his eyes. Still, I'm curious when this batch of seeds will ripen. This was his first time farming, so it felt somewhat novel. A reproduction high-speed train passed by on the sky rail above their heads. Just then, and a letter drifted down slowly. The Ghost Emperor's pupils contracted slightly. With a flick of his sleeve, the envelope fluttering slowly in the air, shot toward his hand with increased speed. Opening the envelope, he read the reproduction's reply. Why must you be so ambitious? Zaire, the list of infiltrators you've hidden as a token of sincerity. The roster, with the sun and white feathers as the covenant, concerns the Jiang clan. The Ghost Emperor frowned deeply, read it several times carefully, and finally understood. They wanted him to hand over that list. He let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed the reproduction was willing to negotiate, and conditions weren't a problem. He immediately cleared his throat with gusto, and spoke. Strategist, I'll speak, you right. The traitors are as follows. He rattled off the names of over a dozen people in one breath, then added one more sentence. Remember to polish it for me, make it sound a bit more cultured. Understood. Chen Fan bowed his head, gazing at the letter the Ghost Emperor had sent again. Over a dozen names in one go. That was quite a lot. He set the letter aside into the hands of the lame Marquis beside him. Send this to Xianxia. Yisi spread his hands helplessly. Follow this list to earn their merits. In the blink of an eye, several days passed. Chen Fan stretched lazily, loosened up his body, and worked toward the pregnancy forest pavilion nearby. The rainy season ended. In a few days, he would need to go out, to venture into the heart of the eternal night and investigate, to see if there were any opportunities or the like. In the Yellow Spring Mouth region, the sky rail above continued to operate as usual. Ji Wu had indeed kept his promise, not attacking the sky rail. These past few days, did he pick Ji Wu from some ancient text, thinking it meant supreme or something? Doesn't he know that unless one's fate is exceptionally strong, one can't bear such a name? The next day, just after dawn, the heavy rain finally stopped. The long mist sunlight finally spilled over Yellow Spring Mouth. Region King, wake up, wake up. The old ghost looked outside the city, at the swiftly approaching azure illusory Xuanwu, and anxiously shook the Ghost Emperor, who was sleeping on the city wall. Woken up in a daze, the Ghost King jumped up as if startled, quickly scanning his surroundings. Soon, he saw outside the city, that azure illusion charging toward the wall. The Xuanwu and instantly reacted. Without a moment's hesitation, he rose and stepped off the city wall. His figure was shrouded in a wave of energy, shooting toward the Yellow Spring Mouth Sea region. It had been over 10 days since his truce with the reproduction. Everything was normal. Float in the air. Back when he fled the Yellow Spring Mouth region, he had quickly shaken off that azure illusory Xuanwu. He had to admit one thing. Though that azure Xuanwu was entirely illusory and nearly invincible, it was still a Xuanwu. Its speed was far inferior to his, except for its initial charge, which was a bit fast. He soon left it far behind. Although the azure black tortoise's body was illusory, it was nearly invincible. But after all, it was a black tortoise. Its speed far inferior to his, except for a burst of speed at the initial charge. It was soon left far behind by him. He was still staying in a city within the Yellow Spring Pass region, contentedly waiting until dawn. But not long after daybreak, something felt off. At the edge of the plains, he spotted that cyan-colored Xuanwu again. Its speed was far slower than before, but its aim was unshakably firm, as if it had locked onto him. It charged straight toward the city wall. He kept running, luring the Xuanwu all the way into the sea, then sped up, coming atune as he returned to the Yellow Spring Pass region. The next day, that cyan Xuanwu charged out of the sea and into the Yellow Spring Pass region again. From then on, it clung to him like a vengeful spirit. He tried sending an inquiry to Fanyu, but Fanyu's reply was simply unknown. Meanwhile, Chen Fan stood cheerfully by the pot, picking up his chopsticks, blowing on a dumpling before stuffing it into his mouth. Beside him, Wang Kui felt the talisman in his bosom grow slightly warm. He then spoke up, Lord of the Abyss, from Fanyu's Yellow Spring Pass defense line. There's another message. Number 95 is still asking how to shake off that cyan Xuanwu. Chen Fan gazed into the depths of his soul, at the information on the Xuanwu cannon on the Eternal Night Lord's panel. Based on the intel from clearing the fleshworm ghost nests back then, this cyan Xuanwu should only last for 2 instant sticks time. Why has it persisted for over 10 days this time? He truly didn't know. The panel had no relevant records. Perhaps. Wait, he suddenly seemed to guess something. He probably understood what the Heavenly Dao Cannon was. Each of the 4 divine cannons possesses a rule-based ability. The Xuanwu Cannon's rule ability is absolute lock-on, which only dissipates when the target dies. When the 4 divine cannons with their rule abilities combine, they form the Heavenly Dao Cannon. For now, it's just speculation. After all, he didn't know how long that cyan Xuanwu chasing the Ghost Emperor could actually last. It's only been about 10 days so far. Maybe it'll dissipate in another 10 days or half a month. If it really could persist indefinitely, or even not indefinitely, just for 30 or 50 years, that would be pure torment, absolute torment. He finally understood why the Xuanwu cannon method required 1,000,000 ghost stones, was all that energy used to maintain the Xuanwu's form. Regardless, Chen Fan casually waved his hand and said directly, can't solve it. Have someone keep an eye on it and see, roughly when that Xuanwu will dissipate. I'm curious too. After the meal, Chen Fan took Cal and the others, disguised themselves, and traveled incognito via the Fanyu high-speed rail, leaving Fanyu, their destination, the heart of the Eternal Night continent. No one knew that inside this high-speed rail heading to the Eternal Night West Xuanwu no one frontline, said Chen Fan. If the Ghost Emperor below found out, that wouldn't be a good thing. Though a temporary truce was in place, if the Ghost Emperor found a way to kill Chen Fan, he believed the other wouldn't hesitate. As the high-speed rail passed over the Yellow Spring Pass region, Chen Fan, seated on the train, looked down from above. He saw countless ghost nests, almost covering the sky and earth, and many ghost huts were even planting crops. How peculiar. He curled his lips. Ghosts eating grain? Probably not. Zhu shook his head. If ghosts needed to eat, they'd have starved to death in the sea long ago. They probably don't need food. Planting crops now might just be to imitate human behavior. They're a bit too eager to become humans. Just then, Chen Fan happened to spot the Ghost Emperor, panting heavily as he returned from afar, standing out starkly among the ghost nests. Exhaustion was written all over the Ghost Emperor's face. This was the first time Chen Fan had seen the Ghost Emperor with his own eyes. He only took a brief glance before quickly looking away. He didn't know if the Ghost Emperor could sense being watched, but it was best not to stare too long. The high-speed train sped past. Soon after, it left the Yellow Spring Mouth district. Following the sky rail, it headed toward the Arteming Basin. Then it stopped halfway. Riding the Africa, they continued deeper into the belly of the Eternal Night continent. Their destination, the Black Tortoise Plains. 3 days later, the Africa slowly descended at the edge of the Black Tortoise Plains. After hiding the Africa in a canyon, they switched their transport back to an ordinary skeleton carriage. They headed toward the nearest city. Soon, he saw a city at the edge of the plains. Though it was extremely far away, he could still see it. 3 large characters carved on that city wall. Black Tortoise City. It must have been some kind of banner-like effect. The carriage began to speed toward the city. but soon after it stopped. Chen Fan's brow furrowed slightly. He had clearly seen the city just a few thousand meters away, yet the skeleton horse had been moving for so long. Why did it feel like the city was getting farther instead? He rubbed his eyes, wondering if his vision was playing tricks on him. The young master, Zhuhu, also rubbed his eyes. I think I'm seeing things. Why does it feel like the city is getting farther and farther? Keep moving forward. Chen Fan didn't say much more. This time, he saw it clearly. When the carriage got within 1,000 meters of the city, it felt like the distance was growing. What the hell? Chen Fan looked up at the sun hanging overhead. If it weren't daytime, he would have thought they'd run into a ghost city. First time here, and the Black Tortoise Plains already gives me a warning. I'll get off. You two keep going. This time, Chen Fan stood still, leaning on his jade working stick. He looked at the Black Tortoise City thousands of meters away, and then at the carriage beside him. The carriage began to move forward quickly. Soon it passed him, closing in on Black Tortoise City, but he saw it clearly. When the carriage was about to reach the city, it started moving backward, and backward, until it returned to his side. The carriage was actually moving in reverse, yet inside the cabin they hadn't felt a thing. Inside the carriage, they only felt as if it were moving forward. Just then, suddenly, a silvery, bell-like laugh came from beside them. Visitors from afar? Chen Fan turned toward the sound. Look, a pink carriage, decorated in an extremely flashy style, stopped beside theirs. The curtain was pulled aside. A girl with a slightly chubby face was smiling at them. He cupped his hands and gave a polite bow, then spoke. We are from the Kishan Merchant Guild. We came to Black Tortoise City seeking business opportunities, but we didn't know this city had such strange quirks. Miss, could you enlighten us? The merchant girl's eyes suddenly lit up. She quickly let the curtain fall, then soon lifted her skirt and stepped down from the carriage. With quick, light steps she hurried over to them. After clearing her throat in a proper manner, she began to explain like a schoolteacher. Black Tortoise City has stood on the Black Tortoise Plains for 78 years. In all that time, it has never fallen to ghost dwellings. The big reason is that the city wall has a special upgrade direction. The closer you get, the farther the wall seams are. The carriage too. The Africa? No good. Nothing works. Even ghost dwellings can't get close. Only those holding a Black Tortoise City pass token can enter the city. Black Tortoise City and the Black Tortoise Plains. Nearly everyone knows it. You don't even know that? Are you really a merchant guild from the Black Tortoise Plains? Normally speaking, a merchant guild entering Black Tortoise City for the first time needs to go to the Pavilion 10 Li west of here to buy a pass token before entering the city, but the girl paused deliberately, then pulled a bronze token from her bosom, handing them to Chen Fan. I have an extra pass token here. I'll give it to you. Consider it making a friend. Chen Fan took the token in his hand. Familiar sense. It was clearly made by the Life Craft Guild. He raised an eyebrow slightly. He smiled and thanked her, wondering what he could offer in return. But this girl, clutching her skirt hem, looked a bit embarrassed, her gaze drifting. Aren't you from the Merchant Guild? The matter is a bit complicated to explain. I come from the Tang family of Black Tortoise City. We mainly make a living through trade. A year ago, the old master sent us 4 siblings out, giving each of us 200,000 ghost stones, saying we had a year to go out and use these 200,000 ghost stones to contribute to the family. The heir would be decided based on the size of the contribution. It could be forging ties with a top-tier power, or opening up a trade route, anything at all. The elders would evaluate the contribution value. The 1-year deadline has already arrived. It wouldn't look good for me to go back empty-handed. Running into you all was just my luck. You don't even know about Black Tortoise City, so you must be a merchant guild from outside the Black Tortoise Plains. If you could come back with me to report, then I could tell the old master that I took 200,000 ghost stones and brought back a merchant guild from outside the Black Tortoise Plains to inspect our family. Then you just hype up your guild, put on a show of inspecting, and then say the inspection failed. That's it. I understand. Chen Fan nodded. His expression turned somewhat odd as he looked at the girl before him, this slightly chubby-cheeked maiden. So you spent this whole year with 200,000 ghost stones, doing absolutely nothing. The heartlands of Eternal Night have a kind of relaxation you don't find in the coastal regions. The coastal areas are fighting to the death, while here in the heartlands, you can just travel for a whole year. The girl tilted her head seriously. As for my 3 older brothers above me, they're all more capable than I am. It would definitely be better for them to be the heir. The old master wouldn't really expect me to accomplish anything significant, but going back empty-handed isn't good after all. Bringing back a little achievement would make the old master happy too. So how about it? Is it okay? A glimmer of hope flashed in the girl's eyes. She stood on tiptoe like a tank, fingers crossed behind her back, looking up at Chen Fan. Of course it's okay. Chen Fan smiled. Great. The girl nodded in satisfaction. She extended her hand. From now on, we're friends. My name is Ten Yu. My name is Chen Fan. Chen Fan extended his hand as well. Along the way, Chen Fan found her to be a rather talkative girl, and not very guarded. She chattered on and on, describing all the places she'd visited over the past year. Chen Fan responded half-heartedly. Soon, the carriage smoothly entered Black Tortoise City. It drove through the bustling market, twisting and turning until it stopped before a large mansion. We're here. This is it. Teng Yu jumped down from the carriage, suddenly remembering something. She hurriedly ran back to her own carriage, and with difficulty pulled out a large cat from inside. Teng Yu looked at Chen Fan, who was stepping down from the carriage, and asked with some confusion, "His name is Fat Meow. He usually sticks close to me, but when I went to your carriage just now, he didn't follow me." Chen Fan looked at Teng Yu. The inside of the carriage was full of women's odds and ends, and no one else besides that. There was only a coachman sitting at the front. It seemed this spirit beast had been tasked with protecting the woman the whole time. It's only natural it didn't dare follow. This carriage has the lingering scent of a Waiwu. Others can't smell it, but as a fellow spirit beast, it probably can. Chen Fan said with a smile. Teng Yu then patted Fat Meow's head. He's a dragon cat, a very powerful spirit beast. They say he has a trace of white tiger bloodline. You know about the white tiger, right? The white tiger is one of the 4 ancient spirit beasts. It's said that long ago, there were 4 great spirit beasts, one of which was a white tiger. Azure Dragon Vermilion Bird, Xuanwu later gave birth to many offspring. The dragon cat is a breed with white tiger bloodline. As for the Xuanwu Plains, it was said to be Xuanwu's territory in the past. Xuanwu and white tiger were lovers. They had many children together. One of those children was a dragon cat-type offspring. Chen Fan silently listened to Teng Yu's account. These were things he had never heard before, nor could he tell truth from falsehood, so he just listened. Just then, the large mansion gate before them was pushed open. An old man with hair mixed black and white, looking quite robust and sturdy, dressed in casual clothes, pushed the door and worked out. He looked at Teng Yu, his eyes full of kind smiles. "Have you had fun this past year?" "Not at all." Teng Yu's eyes lit up. She rushed into the old man's embrace. Somewhat lacking confidence, she whispered softly, "I did something. I found a merchant guild from outside the Xuanwu Plains. This merchant guild is very powerful. It might be able to help our Tang family." The old man smiled and patted Teng Yu's back. His gaze shifted to Chen Fan, who stood by the carriage leaning on a staff, dressed in light robes. The smile in his eyes slowly faded. After first letting go of Teng Yu, he straightened his clothes, cupped his fists in greeting. His expression turned serious as he said, "I am the patriarch of the Tang family of Xuanwu City. I wonder if this esteemed guest is Chen Fan, president of the Kishan Merchant Guild." "President Chen, please come inside." He had initially thought this was just someone the girl had brought back, and was happy to play along with her little act. But upon seeing this man, he immediately knew this was no act. He had met many young people, and this young man was clearly extraordinary. The most notable trait was his calmness. That calmness came from an extremely confident foundation, one accustomed to grand occasions. This was hard to fake. After all, the mansion was enormous and lavishly decorated. An ordinary young man would surely feel intimidated upon seeing it. This was an instinctive reaction, hard to conceal. The guild president, standing by the hall, looked at Chen Fan, somewhat surprised. "You're actually the president?" Chen Fan nodded. Chen Fan smiled helplessly. He actually didn't want to use the title of president, but this old man was clearly well-traveled and knowledgeable. If he made up a lower status at this point, it would seem like deliberate deception, and would instead create suspicion. The mansion was quite lively, with many tables of banquet set up. They had arrived just in time. The feast was about to begin. Before it started, old Master Tang stepped forward to speak. He looked at everyone present, and said with a chuckle, "1 year ago, I sent out the 4 siblings of the Tang family, Tang Yu and the others, each carrying 200,000 ghost stones, to seek opportunities for the Tang family. Now, as promised, all 4 siblings have returned safely. All members of the Tang clan are gathered here, and all elders are present without exception. Today, let the elders judge who has contributed the most. The one with the greatest contribution will become the heir of the Tang family." Taking on the heavy responsibility of strengthening the Tang clan, applause rose from the audience. Chen Fan sat at the main table, looking at Tang Yu's 3 older brothers. He clapped along with the crowd, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. This was his first time attending such a gathering of a major clan. There were indeed quite a lot of people. The 4 siblings of Tang Yu were clearly the main branch. This method of selecting an heir was also favored by the ancestors. After all, the ancestors also wished for a sufficiently powerful heir to lead the Tang family to continued prosperity. Zhu Hu sat to the side, somewhat emotional. Back when he was at the Chen family in Janbei, there were also such gatherings, but back then, the young master was in the woodshed. The steward had also invited the young master, but the young master didn't want to go. "I'll go first." A somewhat weathered middle-aged man stood up, looking at the assembled Tang clan members. "I, Chen Cheng, as the eldest son of the Tang family, scouring everywhere for information on Fan Yu, I carried 200,000 ghost stones and traversed the entire Xuanwu plain. Along the way, I even encountered little sister once. I found clues about the white tiger. As his words fell, the courtyard instantly fell silent. A trace of bewilderment appeared on everyone's faces. The white tiger and Xuanwu were in love, and once lived on the Xuanwu plain. Is this a legend, or a legend with multiple versions? What do you mean by truly finding clues about the white tiger on the Xuanwu plain? Found clues about the white tiger, one of the 4 ancient divine beasts, the white tiger. This man, clearly nearly 40 years old, is Xianxia. That was a border town on the Xuanwu plain. As I passed by a brothel, I saw a beautiful girl sitting at the entrance, with many stray cats gathered at her feet. A burst of stifled laughter came from the crowd. So this is the white tiger. 200,000 ghost stones married into the Gaiteng sect. The old man on the stage at this moment couldn't quite save face. His expression instantly darkened. You'd better explain yourself clearly. This so-called clue about the white tiger. Today we have an honored guest. How could he bear such a loss of face? Shame has spread beyond our doors. Tang Zong's face showed little disturbance. Instead, he continued to look at the crowd and explained, that girl had a ponytail, very pure, sitting at the brothel's entrance, like a lotus in a swamp, emerging from the mud unstained. I couldn't help but step forward to talk. I learned she was a waitress in that brothel, and those stray cats all adored her. She said it was because she often fed them the leftovers from the customers. But I could see it wasn't just that. Later, I didn't go anywhere else. I stayed in that city, and grew closer to her. Gradually, I uncovered a shocking secret. They usually didn't live inside the city, but in a cave on a mountain outside. Even during the rainy season, they stayed there. Everyone should understand what that means. And in that cave, I found a whisker. Tang Zong pulled out from his bosom a white whisker about 3 feet long. He walked over to Tang Yu, the fat cat that had been lying at Tang Yu's feet. Upon sensing the aura of that whisker, instantly bristled all over, then trembled and burrowed under Tang Yu's stool. Seeing this, Tang Zong laughed. I think this whisker is worth 200,000 ghost stones, isn't it? This whisker is very likely from one of the 4 ancient divine beasts, the white tiger's whisker. The scene fell into utter silence. But this time, it was punctuated by several rapid breaths. The beast beside Tang Yu was a dragon cat, extremely powerful. Everyone knew that. It could even trade a few moves with a ghost king, and a single whisker could suppress the dragon cat. The owner of this whisker was certainly no ordinary being. Perhaps it really was a clue to the white tiger. The old master of the Tang family glanced inadvertently at Chen Fan seated at the main table. His scalp stiffened slightly. He saw a glint of curiosity in Chen Fan's eyes. This time, at least, he hadn't lost face before the honored guest, but he had inadvertently revealed a major secret of the Tang family. This was originally a secret exclusive to the Tang family. Now, it might leak out. At that moment, Tang Zong spoke again. I've searched the cave thoroughly. There's nothing else there. Only this whisker. And after I took this whisker away, that cave could no longer ward off ghost dwellings during the eternal night. Even if this whisker isn't the white tiger's, it's still a priceless heavenly treasure. And he pulled up the ponytailed girl sitting beside him. Over this past year, feelings grew between us. This time, I've brought her home to marry her. Well said, well said. The old master of the Tang family laughed again. It seems there's nothing more to it. Then there's no worry about leaking anything. Besides, his eldest son had always been unmarried. It had troubled him for a long time. I didn't expect this trip to also resolve that matter. A double blessing. Elders, please give your scores. Soon after the elders deliberated, they gave a score of 79 based on Tang Zong's contributions. The next to rise was the second son of the Tang family, a man who looked somewhat like a playboy. With a pale, sickly face, he staggered to his feet and said, Father, this year I was out and established a connection with the cultivation sect, Du Yun sect. They promised us that the Tang family can send 3 disciples each year to train in the sect. This spot will do. The old master of the Tang family looked at this son who usually indulged in pleasure and leisure with relief. He's finally grown up. Du Yun sect is the most powerful cultivation sect on the Xuanwu plain. To establish a connection with such a sect is truly impressive. Elders, score 47. Next, the third son of the Tang family, a younger man, rose and looked down at his toes, stammering, Father, I didn't find any opportunities this year, but I didn't dare spend the ghost stones either. I brought back all 200,000 ghost stones. It's fine, that's good too. The old master of the Tang family comforted him helplessly. While the second son indulged in pleasure daily, the third son was the complete opposite. He dared not do anything, and his only skill was hoarding wealth. A year ago, through the Wirangui disguised as an ancient text, 200,000 ghost stones, untouched, truly thrifty, across the entire Xuanwu plain, among families like ours, you won't find anyone more frugal. Elders, score 18. Then, everyone's gaze focused on Tang Yuan. Chen Fangqi, too, sat beside him. Teng Yu rose, cleared his throat, and then introduced solemnly, "Let me introduce everyone. Beside me is the president of the Kishan Merchant Guild, a very powerful force, from beyond the Xuanwu Plain. He came to inspect our Tang family at my invitation. If a deal is struck, it will be a huge business." How huge? As soon as the words fell, a voice with laughter came from the crowd. Could it be that Teng Yu just found someone random to put on an act? With Teng Yu's ability, what big merchant guild could you possibly contact? Everyone turned to look, and saw a middle-aged woman covered in jewelry, with 2 servants following her from the front yard. She stopped by the table and looked at the old master of the Tang family. "The Tang family's 100th banquet doesn't invite me. What does that mean? Am I not a member of the Tang family?" "Nonsense." The old master's face darkened. "We have an honored guest today. This is not the time for your troublemaking. Step back. Every family has its troubles." The Tang family appeared glorious on the surface, but behind the scenes there were hidden matters. This woman was indeed a member of the Tang family. She was the wife of his elder brother. In the early years, when the family was rising, his elder brother sacrificed himself for the Tang family. After that, he took over his brother's position and became the head of the Tang family, and the family gradually grew stronger. Only this woman remained resentful, believing that if her husband hadn't died, the Tang family would now be his. The Tang family often clashed with her over trivial matters. He could understand that, but today, with an honored guest present, it was truly not the time for such a scene. Teng Yu took a deep breath, met the middle-aged woman's gaze, and shut back. His merchant guild has reserves of 10 million ghost corpses. No, 50 million ghost corpse reserves. Would you say that's big or not? Big. This middle-aged woman, standing by the table, had a necklace where every bead was perfectly round without flaw, and the jade on her wrist was of the finest quality. Her entire appearance was extremely opulent. Her lips slightly drooped, and she looked at Teng Yu with a hint of mockery. "Of course it's big. A merchant guild with 50 million ghost corpse reserves. Placed anywhere, it would absolutely count as a major merchant guild." Just then, she raised a pale, egg-shaped stone in her hand. "I happen to have here a truth-seeking stone obtained from the immersion liquid shop. As long as you grip this stone in your hand, speaking the truth will yield no reaction, but speaking a lie will cause it to emit a red glow. Do you dare let the young man by your side give it a try?" The scene fell silent in an instant. As his words fell, everyone's gaze converged on Chen Fan. In truth, everyone knew this fellow was most likely brought back by Teng Yu to put on an act. After all, Teng Yu had no intention of competing for the heir position. "Here, you." Teng Yu's eyes reddened slightly, her tone laced with a hint of anger. "I haven't provoked you. Why are you targeting me?" The chinchilla lying at her feet now sensed its master's emotions, its fur bristling slightly, its body hunching low. "Roar, I'm not targeting you." The richly adorned woman shook the egg-shaped stone in her hand, immediately discerning truth from falsehood. Could it be that this selection of the Tang clan is nothing but a farce? With all these elders here playing house, enough. The old master of the Tang clan felt his face burn. Glaring, he said, "Over the years, the Tang clan has never treated you poorly. Those jewels on your body, which of them wasn't bought for you by the Tang clan? Whatever you wanted to buy. The Tang clan never skimped. Now, with honored guests present, what are you trying to do?" "That's what I deserve," the woman replied, tilting her head without a trace of fear. "Gold Master Tang. If my husband hadn't died, the one standing there now would be him, not you. One question, dare to test or not? If you don't dare, then get lost. The Tang clan doesn't welcome any rotten melons or cracked dates, sneaking in for a free meal. If you really can't afford to eat, I'll have the kitchen pack some takeout for you. You're asking for death." Kwahu, who had been sitting to the side, finally couldn't bear it any longer. His face dark, he slammed the table and stood up. "Say one more word, and I'll tear your mouth apart." "Oh." The woman turned to face Kwahu and laughed. "So, is it a test or not? Bring it here." Chen Fan, who had remained seated throughout, finally rose. With a calm expression, he waved his hand. "Zuhu, restrain your anger." Kwahu, his face still dark, strode over to the woman, took the egg-shaped stone from her hand, returned to the table, and handed it to Chen Fan. Chen Fan examined the stone in his hand, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Interesting. It can discern truth from falsehood. I wonder where this was obtained. When I return, I'll see if I can bring a batch back." Teng Yu hurriedly leaned close to Chen Fan's ear, whispering urgently, "You don't have to test it. Just get angry now, say you've been insulted, and leave quickly. I'll handle the rest." "No need." Chen Fan smiled, closing his palm around the egg-shaped stone. "My guild has a reserve of 50 million ghost stones." The next moment, red light blazed forth. The egg-shaped stone in his hand suddenly turned blood red, emitting a crimson glow that shot out from between his fingers. Red means false. Everyone in the courtyard froze in place. "What's going on?" The old master of the Tang clan took a deep breath, his eyes shut as he stood there, pondering how to salvage the situation. Brother, you were so confident, looking so full of conviction. But why did it glow red? Ha horror. The middle-aged woman in the crowd was also stunned, but after a moment, she couldn't help bursting into laughter. Why not try 40 million? Maybe your deal just spent 10 million earlier. Doesn't that work? Chen Fan curled his lip, tossing the egg-shaped stone in his hand. This truth-seeking stone is quite detailed. He gripped the stone again, and said softly, my faction has a reserve of 50 million ghost stones. This time, the stone remained calm, no red light appearing. The scene fell into utter silence. The woman's laughter abruptly stopped. She stared at Chen Fan in disbelief. The egg-shaped stone still in her hand. Chen Fan turned his head with a smile and looked at Tang Yu. I told you it'd be fine, didn't I? Take her away. The old master of the Tang family reacted instantly. With a dark expression, he gave the order. Two servants immediately dragged the middle-aged woman away. The woman offered no resistance, only staring blankly at that dull, lustreless pebble, her face full of disbelief. How could there really be 50 million ghost corpses? What kind of massive force must that be? Then, the old master of the Tang family strode over to Chen Fan and offered his apologies. He had already figured it out. The identity of the Chamber of Commerce president was fake, but having his own faction was real. A force with a reserve of 50 million ghost corpses could not be underestimated. Wu Ai Chen. Casually, Chen Fan tucked the pebble into his chest. He stood up and said with a smile, your family's scripture is actually pretty easy to recite. Don't mind me. You all go ahead, then we'll talk later. The old master of the Tang family took a deep breath, then continued distributing shares to the elders. Several elders exchanged glances, discussed for a moment, and gave a score of 78. It was a fair score. After all, they had indeed made ties with a major force, but it wasn't yet certain what profits could be gained from that force. Still, they couldn't set it too low, since the honored guest was right there. Amid the cheers of the crowd, Tang Zong was officially designated as the Tang family heir. After the banquet ended, Chen Fan and Tang Yu worked together in the back courtyard. She apologized for exposing Chen Fan's identity. After chatting for a while, Tang Yu mentioned that 6 years ago, she had stumbled upon Fat Miao at our heritage site and obtained a blue-grade building blueprint. She pointed out that this building blueprint, because the Tang family architects had never been able to decipher it, had recently been put up for sale by the old master. Tang Yu said apologetically, didn't you say your main purpose in coming here was for the building blueprint? How about you take a look and see if you need it? If you do, I'll go ask the old master to sell it to you at a low price. Qiu Yixi spread his hands helplessly. Chen Fan looked at the dragon cat that had been following Tang Yu, and that so-called white tiger whisker. A thought flickered in his mind. Could it be? If it really was that, then this trip would be a huge score. Let me take a look. Wait here for a moment. Tang Yu jabbed out. A building blueprint clutched in her hand. She handed it to Chen Fan. This is it. See if you need it. Chen Fan looked at the blueprint in his hand, thin as a cicadar's wing, its entire body a deep azure blue. Stood silent with a blank expression. Item name, White Tiger Cannon. Item effect, blue-grade item. Building blueprint, city defense structure. It was just like a pillow. When you're drowsy, one of the 4 divine cannons, the White Tiger Cannon, had appeared so lightly in his hands. He took a deep breath, then he raised his voice and called out, old master of the Tang family, come on out. Let's talk price. The next moment, the old master of the Tang family emerged from the pavilion. He got straight to the point. President Chen, I won't beat around the bush. This building blueprint, grade architectural blueprint in his hand. President Chen, you should also know the price of a blue-grade building blueprint. But since you're friends with my daughter, I won't ask you for ghost stones. There's one condition. Before he could finish, he was cut off. 20 million ghost stones. The old master of the Tang family noticed the storage ring on Chen Fan's hand. His pupils contracted. 20 million ghost stones. That price, it choked off everything he was about to say. 20 million, no haggling. Cash on delivery. Chen Fan emphasized again. He understood what the old master of the Tang family meant, but the longer the delay, the more could go wrong. Right now, this blueprint was in his hands, and he had no intention of letting it go. Deal. The words had barely left his mouth. Tens of thousands of high-grade ghost stones suddenly materialized out of thin air in midair, then fell to the ground, scattering bit by bit. Chen Fan grinned widely, immediately took the blueprint of this white tiger cannon in hand, into his chest, had already started considering whether to turn back. The old master of the Tang family looked at the tens of thousands of high-grade ghost stones on the ground, stood frozen in place. He could now be certain of one thing, that the forces behind President Chen absolutely wouldn't have only 50 million ghost stones. A man who could carry 20 million ghost stones on him. Just what kind of person was this? Could he be some young master from the front lines? After that moment of shock, the old master of the Tang family finally came to his senses. His voice somewhat hoarse, he said, President Chen, do you still need other blue-grade blueprints? I know, some factions also have diagrams they haven't deciphered, and are ready to sell them off. I'll help you acquire them at a low price. The more, the better. I'll give you 10 million ghost stones. For every blue-grade blueprint you bring me, no matter how many ghost stones you paid to get them. For every blue-grade blueprint you bring me, if there are any high-grade ones, I can give you 100 million, or even more for the highest grades. The old master of the Tang family was momentarily stunned, then gave a wry smile. That should be impossible. There are no high grades above blue. At least, I've never seen one, nor even heard of it. Maybe there are, Chen Fan said. Chen Fan said with a smile, though he didn't hold much hope. He was already satisfied. Anything more would be a pleasant surprise. Chen Fan didn't stay long at the Tang estate. After bidding farewell to Tang Yu and the Tang family head, he found an inn in Black Tortoise City and settled in. He planned to wait until the Tang family head acquired a batch of building blueprints for him, then return with them. Inside the White Tiger Cannon Inn, Chen Fan pulled out the White Tiger Cannon blueprint from his chest and tore it to shreds on the spot. Soon, in the list of buildable structures, he saw the White Tiger Cannon option. His heart itched to hurry back and forge a White Tiger Cannon to see its effect. Meanwhile, a small incident had occurred elsewhere. The Yellow Springs Pass had finished its morning drills as usual. Judd, back from a leisurely patrol, and once again left the young Black Tortoise far behind. Ghost Yellow 95 now stared grimly at the ghost orb in his hand. From his subordinates, he learned that an earthquake had struck the nesting grounds, and a massive wave of ghost nests had descended again upon the western eternal night. Outside the Black Tortoise one frontline C-zone, they had replaced his presence, preparing to assault the front line, and this time, 3 peak ghost emperors had even come. The strange thing was, the ghost race had been fighting for so many years. Every pit had its own radish, all slots were filled. The nesting grounds still had ghost clans that hadn't descended. Where did these 3 peak ghost emperors and this batch of ghost nests come from? Forget it, Ghost Yellow 95 shook his head, dismissing the thought. Even he couldn't make sense of the current changes. Still, he didn't plan to leak this information to Fan Yu. That would be treason. If the ghost race won in the future, such behavior would surely be punished. Strange, he muttered. After nightfall tonight, send a few ghost nests to patrol the Yellow Springs Pass defense line. We have to put on a show. That way, when the front line fell, and they came to see him, they'd know he truly had been attacking this Yellow Springs Pass defense line. 3 days later, Chen Fan and his group rode a skeleton carriage swiftly out of Black Tortoise City, arrived at the depths of that canyon, and slipped into the African Rift to head home. After another 3 days of travel, Chen Fan and the others returned to Nameless Mountain. It's familiar here. Chen Fan stood on the Janbei defense line. He rested his hands on the wall, gazing at the distant sea. Prison Master Wang Kui approached and reported, according to your orders, Fan Yu has dispatched some personnel, under the guise of a merchant guild, to infiltrate various regions deep within the Eternal Night continent. Their daily tasks are mainly gathering intelligence and acquiring rare treasures on the side. Responsibilities such as construction blueprints. By leveraging the influence of the Tang family in the Xuanwu Plains, we can easily establish a foothold in the Xuanwu Plains, and then gradually expand outward. Chen Fan nodded lightly. The Tang family's power will naturally amplify his merchant guild. The forces in the Xuanwu Plains already have a certain level of trust in their merchant guild. Otherwise, an unfamiliar guild settling in the Xuanwu Plains would inevitably face some resistance. This guild shall be called the Janbei Merchant Guild. Afterwards, Chen Fan finally turned his gaze to one of the buildable structures in the Eternal Night Lord's panel, the White Tiger Cannon. He spent 10,000 ghost stones to forge it, and immediately began upgrading it to the 2nd level. This building's upgrade offered no branching paths. Each upgrade simply increased its power, nor could he obtain any upgrade path through other means. Advancing to the next level required 30,000 ghost stones. Continuing to upgrade cost only tens of thousands of ghost stones. Soon, in one go, he raised the White Tiger Cannon to its maximum level, which was the 10th level. Chen Fan squinted slightly. He looked at the exceptionally imposing giant cannon beside him. This cannon is pretty cool. Compared to the Xuanwu cannon, this White Tiger Cannon felt more like a blue-grade city defense structure. Most importantly, the White Tiger Cannon was cheaper to build. Now, all that remained was to test its power. It was not yet nightfall, so there was no target to fire at, but he was already eager to take a shot and see the results. The next moment, the massive White Tiger Cannon's energy runes lit up rapidly, and a dark blue light quickly gathered at the cannon's muzzle. An overwhelming amount of energy condensed at the cannon's mouth. Standing at a considerable distance, he could still feel a wave of death rushing toward him. After a long pause, and a count of 17 breaths, the soul-shaking tiger's roar echoed, and a thunderous blast suddenly erupted. A pillar of extreme cold white light, composed of countless bolts of lightning, shot forth from the cannon's muzzle, hurtling straight toward the sea. In an instant, everything turned dark. Standing on the city wall, Chen Fan, it felt as if the sky had suddenly gone black, but he knew that it was merely because the light pillar's intensity had instantly exceeded his perception range. After the light pillar shot out from the cannon's muzzle, it rapidly expanded to a width of 100 meters. This extreme cold white light pillar lasted for a full 17 breaths before the white tiger cannon ceased firing. The runes on its surface flickered continuously, as if it were resting. Not far away, on the sea surface, a massive amount of steam churned and billowed. After a long while, he exclaimed, "Good cannon." Chen Fan grinned widely. He could now confirm that the white tiger cannon specialized in lethal attacks. Its power was absolutely not to be underestimated. The only drawback was that it required a charging period. Tisk, by the time it charges, the enemy would have long since fled. Then, he turned his attention to another building blueprint he had acquired from the Tang family, one called the Formation Hall. Its grade was blue, and its effect required a formation master to oversee the construction of a grand formation. A grand formation. Chen Fan squinted slightly, gazing at the blueprint in his hand. He had encountered many grand formations before, such as the city-protecting formations of the Dan sect and the Hake Heaven sect, but he had abandoned them due to their poor cost-effectiveness. Now, let's see if this formation hall would surprise him. Afterward, he found an empty space and decided to build a grand hall. It quickly appeared before him. Let's upgrade it to level 2 first and see. The formation hall, when raised to level 2, this building's upgrade offered no branching paths. Lines forming the brick kiln it gradually took shape, would unlock a new forgeable formation. Moreover, its consumption was far lower than independent formation creation. Currently forgeable formations. 1. The gravity formation, which could to some extent suppress body movement and aura. 2. The water-repelling formation, which could provide some waterproofing. This building required a formation master to preside over the creation of formations. Formations could be shrunk into formation plates for portability. Upgrading to the next level required an additional 20,000 ghost stones. That's cheap enough, Chen Fan nodded. Without hesitation, he upgraded the formation hall to level 10, unlocking a new forgeable formation, the teleportation formation. Chen Fan suddenly stopped and rubbed his eyes, looking on in disbelief. Teleportation formation, these 3 words, could elevate the Finesun town's overall strength by several stages. Then Chen Fan contacted Zyro Qiu. Zyro Qiu, flip through the breeding members resumes. Are there any formation masters? Have the highest strength one come over. Soon, the bald middle-aged man arrived before Chen Fan. Chen Fan sized up the man before him, said nothing more, and simply handed him a needle. Just take a drop of your blood. He took the man's fingertip blood, strode into the town hall, and went to the core area. He dripped it in. In an instant, this originally dim town hall blazed with light. Now it was in a state with a formation master stationed, and he was able to see more detailed information about the formations. Formation name, teleportation formation. Formation effect, build 1 teleportation formation at each of 2 locations, allowing instant teleportation regardless of distance. Cannot carry too many supplies on person. If carrying too many supplies, there is a high probability of losing them in the spatial turbulence. The teleportation formation's consumption depends on the distance, varying in ghost market prices. Suddenly, Chen Fan took a deep breath, slowly closed his eyes. This trip to the Xuanwu Plains made him realize one thing, that the depths of the eternal night held many opportunities, all in a state of being undiscovered by anyone. Then he took out a sound transmission talisman, contacted Zyro Qiu again. Bring me the detailed resumes, the remaining 10 formation masters, among the breeding members. He wanted to get the town hall running quickly, then put it into use. Then, Chen Fan looked at the bald man beside him, and spoke. From now on, the breeding division establishes a new hall. You shall serve as the first hall master of the main hall. For the next period, the main hall's primary task is to build a batch of heaven-sealing formations, head to the new continent, and set up teleportation formations between the new continent and the breeding division, as well as some special points. I need to see results as soon as possible. This bald man named Zhang Qiu nodded in acknowledgement and swiftly left. As for the heaven-sealing formation, it was obtained when the town hall was upgraded to level 7, and was also the great formation left at Nameless Mountain. 7 days later, Chen Fan stood before a formation. After listening to Zhang Qiu's introduction, Qiu Yisi spread his hands helplessly, immediately stepped onto this teleportation formation. With a fart, the teleportation formation beneath him lit up instantly, those mysterious patterns emitting bursts of green light. Several green light pillars shot into the sky. The next moment, he only felt a slight dizziness, the world before him suddenly blurring. But it lasted only an instant, and soon the world before him became clearer again. When he felt it was completely clear, he found his surroundings were no longer the breeding port, but Site No, one of the new continent. inside a courtyard within the city, along the Janbei coastline. He then used the teleportation formation again to return to the breeding port. When the surrounding world blurred again and quickly cleared up, he saw Zhang Kangqiu, Huaihu, and the others once more. Not bad, Shen Fan smiled. He looked at Zhang Kangqiu. Well done. Next, set up a teleportation formation at every important location. Thus, a year passed. At year's end, as memory served, winter arrived, has been executed. The atmosphere on the front line had clearly relaxed a lot. For over a year, they had hardly seen any ghost nests, not even ghost creatures. But the frontline commander, this middle-aged man who had once shown Chen Fan around the front line, now stood on the city wall, his face grim as he gazed at the deep sea under dusk. Lately, he had clearly felt something was off. The atmosphere on the front line over this past year had gradually become relaxed. During night watches, everyone started chatting and laughing, in a somewhat slack state. This made him feel vaguely uneasy. Just then, a man beside old Qiu strode over and said in a low voice, "The scouts sent out have returned. There's no activity on the sea surface. It seems there really might be no ghost nests." The commander remained silent, saying nothing. "Continue sending the African night operatives to explore the sea area." The man hesitated slightly, but he quickly agreed nonetheless. In a region of the eternal night continent shrouded in darkness, two crocodiles lay sprawled on the ground, staring blankly in utter boredom. A middle-aged man sat cross-legged on the ground, eyes closed, resting his mind. Suddenly, the man opened his eyes and looked up into the darkness above. His expression tightened slightly. The surrounding darkness began to dissipate rapidly, like darkness plunged into boiling oil. This darkness that had trapped him for decades was melting away at a speed almost too fast for the eye to follow, dissolving swiftly. Once all the surrounding darkness had vanished, he found himself on a small island, a sandy beach surrounded by sea on all sides. Above him hung a blood-red setting sun. Night was about to fall. The Great Formation had been lifted. That bastard had voluntarily undone the Great Formation. For some reason, a faint sense of unease crept into his heart. The darkness receded, revealing a shapeless shadow, wreathed in mist. Speaking in a tone never heard before, it turned to the middle-aged man. "Complicated as it is, our game ends here. I no longer need the coordinates of a new continent." During last year's rainy season, the original continent, our habitat, was invaded. A wave of ghost nests seized the habitat continent, and during the rains, they reshuffled and reorganized the ghost nests. Now every front line is filled with their ghost nests. Their strength is beyond your imagination. Tonight is the day of the final assault. In a region of the eternal night continent shrouded in darkness, two crocodiles lay sprawled on the ground, staring blankly in utter boredom. A middle-aged man sat cross-legged on the ground, eyes closed, resting his mind. Suddenly, the man opened his eyes, looking up at the darkness above his head. His expression tightened slightly. The surrounding darkness began to dissipate swiftly, like darkness plunged into boiling oil. This darkness that had trapped him for decades, melting away at a speed almost too fast for the eye to follow. Once all the surrounding darkness had vanished, he found himself on a small island's beach, surrounded by sea on all sides. Above him hung a blood-red setting sun. Night was about to fall. The Great Formation had been lifted. That bastard had voluntarily undone the Great Formation. For some reason, a faint sense of unease crept into his heart. The darkness receded, revealing a shapeless shadow, wreathed in mist. Speaking in a tone never heard before, he looked at the middle-aged man. "Complicated as it is, our game ends here. I no longer need the coordinates of a new continent." During last year's rainy season, the original continent, our habitat, was invaded. A wave of ghost nests seized the habitat continent, and during the rains, they reshuffled and reorganized the ghost nests. Now every front line is filled with their ghost nests. Their strength is beyond your imagination. Tonight is the day of the final assault. The middle-aged man stood still, saying nothing. His face dark, he lightly touched his forehead with two fingers. In an instant, a massive eye suddenly hovered in the sky, nearly blotting out the light of the blood-red sun. As the eye slowly opened, he saw it overlooking the entire eternal night continent. He saw the depths of the sea bordering the eternal night continent, at the boundary between eternal night and daylight. In places invisible to the mortal world, endless ghost nests were continuously gathering. Those ghost nests, in both number and strength, were several times greater than any the eternal night continent had faced before. Several times stronger. He saw it. He also saw the Great Formation he had once been trapped in. The day the ghost nests fell, just as now, he saw it. He saw the humanity of the eternal night continent, saw the last ghost fire extinguished, saw the final defensive line shatter. Why did this suddenly happen? His face turned slightly pale. He couldn't help but ask. Faced with a variable, the shadow shrouded in darkness, spoke slowly. Actually, early in last year's rainy season, the Ghost Clan discovered that the expansion speed of the original continent's lineage had suddenly surged. They had to find a new continent. Time is truly running out for the Ghost Clan. At that point, the Ghost Clan had already abandoned the Heavenly Dao, abandoned the hope of having a Heavenly Dao of their own. As a Heavenly Dao, you should know what the Heavenly Dao means. The Heavenly Dao means you can receive the voices of this world. It means you can take a step toward a high realm. It means being truly accepted by this world. The Ghost Clan, only by killing every human on the Eternal Night continent, and completely occupying it, can they birth a Heavenly Dao of their own. So, in the first 10 days of last year's rainy season, almost no front line fell. The Ghost Clan sent their high-ranking members for the first time to hold a formal, lengthy discussion with the Eternal Night Hall's high ranks. The Ghost Clan hoped that the Eternal Night Hall would cede a portion of the Eternal Night continent for the Ghost Clan to inhabit. With such habitation, the Ghost Clan could not birth a Heavenly Dao of their own. They would still not be recognized by this world, but at least they could survive. The Eternal Night Hall refused, negotiated 10 times, rejected 10 times. The Ghost Tribe made new concessions each time. Until the middle of last year's rainy season, the primordial continent was invaded by a batch of ghost nests. They called themselves the Royal Clan. Of course, they were still ghost dwellings. Their strength far surpassed ours. Their methods were also more numerous than ours. In a short span of time, they changed.